Ring, 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 banana phone. On this week's episode of Horror Hole, I am your host Wyatt, and who is here with me today, as always?
Cindy, this bitch is messing up my floor. I'm Cody Risco.
We're here to talk about the seminal Japanese horror movie Ring. Not The Ring, and not Ringu, but Ring. Mm-hmm. So, this was my pick for our, after you picked Barbarian last time, I decided Ring would be a good one because I don't think you've seen the Japanese movie.
I think I did watch this like a couple years ago, but I'd forgotten most of what happens in it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, but either way, good movie. Yeah. So I wanted to watch it again. It's one of my favorite of like the J horror that era, and I want to talk about that. Well, first of all, first impressions. You enjoy the movie?
Yeah, I there were some aspects of it that I thought were a little bit underwhelming, and we can touch on that later. Yes. But overall, it was definitely worthwhile. I love the atmosphere of the movie. It's very good at just this feeling of just you never feel safe, no matter like even you're outside in broad daylight, and you're still like anything could fucking happen.
Yes, that's what I would say is the crowning achievement of the movie is like the vibe, and. Yeah, we'll get into that a little bit more, but I do want to talk about a bit before we talk about the movie, the explosion of J-horror movies that happened in like the late 90s into the early 2000s. Mm-hmm.
That's my first note.
And a lot of it, a lot of it was because of this movie. Mm-hmm. It was obviously like a huge success in Japan. A few years later, it was remade by Gore Verbinski in America. That's the version I saw as a kid. I'm sure that's the version most people saw as a kid. I remember when they were releasing this movie in America as Ringu, like in the early 2000s. I was like, what is that? Is this like a ripoff of The Ring? Like, I didn't understand that one was an adaptation of the other. Mm-hmm. And then, like, when my mom or somebody told me, like, oh, no, it's a foreign version of it. I thought I thought it was, like, European or something. Like, I didn't fully connect that it was Japanese until like The Grudge came out, and then that was like a Japanese horror movie. The American version of it still takes place in Japan,
which is the one of the benefits of that movie. I think it is because I've always thought like if they remade The Grudge and had it take place in America, like so much of Ju-on is like that one fucking house that there's just and I'm just picturing
like this very Japanese house in like a cramped neighborhood.
If it was like a McMansion in a subdevelopment or whatever, it just wouldn't work. It needs to be that specific weird looking house.
And I kind of feel that same way with Ring in the sense that I think that the remake is pretty good. I think there are much worse Japanese, American horror movie. Mm-hmm. Yeah, or Pulse, especially. That was fucking horrendous. Great movie. We did it on Discuss All Monsters years ago, the Japanese version. But kind of the folksy weird, like the weirdness of like the backwater backstory of Sadako kind of fits really well in Japan, but it also does fit well in like an American like Midwest sort of setting. I think that they actually did do a good job transferring that quality onto an American version of the movie.
I completely have. I know I watched it maybe once when I was little. I have no memory besides the scene where she crawls out of the TV. I don't remember anything about the plot in the American one. So I truly do not remember like what their adaptation of that backstory was. I'd be curious to know though.
So in from what I recall, it's like it's kind of just taking the instead of the island, and then there's like the prophetess, and then like to preventing a volcano from erupting or whatever. It is more of a like, like that Midwestern kind of like people living out in the country, pioneer esque sort of, like folk legend thing.
Okay.
And I think like the only major difference off the top of my head is that like I don't think that the mom was a psychic. I think it was
just the daughter.
Samara, the girl. Whereas like in this, like the idea is that she was a psychic, and then her daughter was like a way more psychic.
Yeah,
psychic.
that was really interesting. It was.
Yeah.
It was cool because again, I didn't remember when I think I may have fallen asleep the first time I watched this because it was with another friend of ours, Broden and Heather.
Yeah. It is a very chill.
Yeah.
Movie. It's a very like unexciting movie. So,
but being like, oh, this is like the actual like everybody knows the tape of The Ring. It's like one of the most iconic like horror just ideas out there. So I was like, oh, like learning the actual backstory from the original movie. That was probably the part where I was most engaged because it was for the most part like completely new to me.
Yeah, and yeah, I think that's another part that I really just whatever, we're gonna jump around.
Yeah.
On this, who cares?
This movie you can't describe the things linearly because so much of it would just like a lot of this movie is just like it kind of feels like scenes cut before they should, and you're just jumping onto the next thing immediately.
Yeah.
So describing it,
we can just talk about like parts of the movie, like characters or storylines or whatever.
Neglectful parents.
Like I feel like the tape is like is really cool to me because of it's a lot more subtle in this than it is in the American movie. And every image has like a very distinct meaning. Whereas I didn't feel that was the case with the cursed tape in the American version. Like it all seemed like it was just kind of like weird.
They kept
to be weird and creepy.
They did keep the woman brushing her hair. I remember that from the American one. Yeah, isn't there like close-ups on eyeballs and bugs crawling in the dirt and like 2000s editing and I'm so sure, yeah.
Yeah, and like a nail going through a toe or something. Like there's like a bunch of shit going on that where it's like with this like every single image is like weird and creepy because it's so vague and so shitty quality. Yeah, because it's like a VHS tape from the from the 90s, and you're just like, what the fuck does any of this mean? But then that's like a really cool part of the movie is actually they are journalists. So they're using their like research skills to learn piece by piece what every single like image in the tape means.
Yeah,
and like drawing conclusions. There's some we'll get into it. There's some elements where it's like, wait, what? Yeah. With the plot and characters, but we'll get into that.
She works Asakawa. It's the exact same location as Ori Journal from Kamen Rider Ryuki. It reminded me of that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just at the start of the movie, I guess they kind of do the through line is kind of in there, but just the focus on different urban legends and how they're spread from person to person. I kind of wanted more of a discussion of that. It kind of reminded me of like in Candyman, like there's like a dinner scene where they're talking about various urban legends at length, but then they kind of hone in on the Candyman one. I don't know. I think that more could have been done with just the general discussion around urban legends.
I think so too. I think the viral nature of like urban legends and how quickly they can spread and that kind of thing, and then that being worked into technology is a theme that's really good, but is not very well explored in this movie. Because this movie is just such a small section of like people experiencing this thing.
Yeah,
I feel like once you like later movies in the J horror ethos like Ju-on become a lot more about like this like a curse acting like a virus, and like spreading from one person to another, and it's like it becomes like an epidemic to the point where it's like almost impossible to stop.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas this, it's just like there's kind of the implication at the end that it might go on forever, but there's also like, well, why would it? You know,
Mm-hmm.
like why the way that the movie ends.
Oh,
Spoilers. You go watch the movie.
yeah.
You know, but we're gonna
Just
do some spoilers.
assume that for every episode of the show, pretty much.
Yeah. But she's like, all right, Dad, I need you to do something for my son. And it's like, why would the old guy, he's not going to copy the tape and give it to somebody else to pass the curse on. He's just going to die, and then the curse is going to stop there. So, you know, I guess I've never seen the sequels, so
I would be curious to watch.
I have no idea where the hell,
because I at least
have
two.
the Arrow.
Mm-hmm.
I have the Arrow Blu-ray set for
nice
the series. That's where like I first watched like the first movie, and it comes with Ring 0 and Ring 2, and then you know, I know there's like 40 billion other fucking Ring related movies and crossovers and whatever, but you know, I think those are like the core movies.
Mm-hmm. Well, and there's of course the crossover with Kayako from
Grudge.
Yeah. But one thing I was curious if you knew anything about is I noticed in the credits, I'm pretty sure I said that this was based on a book.
Yes, I know a little bit about the book, and that it was more like this is like a pretty like streamlined adaptation of the book. The book kind of like you know, the book has less supernatural elements in it actually, which is very interesting. In the point where like I believe it like literally is a virus that kills people, as opposed to like she just uses her psychic power to stop their hearts. So, and then there's like some other elements that are very weird about that. But yeah, I remember like learning about that and being kind of interested in like reading it at some point.
Yeah.
I've also heard from people that are fans of the movie that it's like, nah, don't even bother. The movie is sort of like the best version.
That's so funny.
So I don't know if that's true. That being said, this did give me some light Stephen King vibes. I guess like the psychic powers stuff. Sort of
Ryuji. I
like
literally have a note
Stephen King's vibes
about him having the shine.
Yeah, I've completely forgot about that. So like when I was watching it, I was like, wait, oh yeah, he has psychic powers.
Yeah.
So because in the American movie they give the psychic powers to the son.
That's right.
Because like literally the plot, the exact structure of the plot is the same across both movies. So they're like, all right, let's give the psychic powers and that they learn about, you know, the girl in the well from the son, rather than, you know, Ryuji like grabs the, you know, the dad and or the guy and he's like, oh, I suddenly am in a board meeting or whatever, or in like a presentation.
And she can also see it too, even though she isn't psychic. Yeah. So he can like project it onto somebody else. But when
that's one of those like very convenient, we need to fucking explain the plot. You know,
I remembered something that from the American version, because I think I was waiting for this scene to happen in this version, and it's not in there, because I remember after the scene with the well in the remake, like she's talking to the little boy, and he's like, "Why did you help her? You shouldn't have helped her." Like that's made things even worse. And I do think. I do like the idea of giving it to the kid. I think that is creepier too.
That is more Stephen King-y, and you know, like how that works.
What's his name? Yoichi. He's dressed like the little kid who's friends with Gamera. He has like the knee-high pants with the little short shorts that every little It's so funny.
And the giant like. The gigantic, like the Japanese children have like ridiculously huge backpacks.
Yes, they're so cool, and they're super expensive.
Like, but yeah, he is like he is a kid who seems like he, you know, like in any other movie, like it would be obvious to like give him the creepy kid role, but in this they kind of just keep him. He's just like a sad sack,
Yeah, he's a
sort of
latchkey
just like
kid.
wandering from scene to scene. Yeah, and then there's like some moments where it's like, okay, oh, Tomoko told me to take the tape. So did her spirit appear to him, or did he
Yeah.
use did he have psychic powers? Does he have psychic powers latently because his father did? And it's like,
What I
with
Mhm.
the mother and then Sadako, where like they are amplified like down the generational line.
I thought it was
I
a
don't know.
thing like once they see the tape, they are just like having like visions that it just happens to everybody who
Yeah,
watches it.
like she's just so powerful that she can just
Make you see.
impart visions onto people. Yeah.
Uh,
I That's one thing I do like as far as the power scaling discussion goes of like villains in Japanese horror movies, is that like she seems like Sadako seems like she's like not fucking around. Like the fact that she can kill people instantly is already good enough, but they like really heavily imply towards the climax of the movie when they're like on the island and they need to get back home and there's a rainstorm happening, that like that was supernatural.
yeah.
Like that it was like her rage
Mhm.
and her like, her own nen from, beyond the grave is like causing this storm to come. And it's like, Jesus.
Yeah. They.
Like, holy shit.
Mhm. I love. There's a few shots like this where she or do whatever force it is. Like they see a
Mm,
reflection in the TV mirror, and it's like a skewed,
mm,
like pointing. Like I think there's one at the end where he's like pointing at the purse, and there's a
yeah.
couple other ones, and those shots because they're so distorted by the glass. They're really creepy.
Yeah.
I love the
Yeah, that's the thing. That's what I would describe the movie as, creepy more so than like outwardly
yeah.
scary. So,
Uh,
what were you saying?
I'm just looking at some more notes. I love the little rhyme that they have on the island.
Mm-hmm.
What was it? It's something about brine and goblins. Goblins be thine,
Yeah, yeah, like if you frolic in the brine,
goblins be thine. Yeah.
then
Mhm.
yeah.
All the stuff with the island. I think that might be another like highlight for me, just because it's such a change from like just the urban setting, and it's
Mm. Remind me of Godzilla, like the
yes.
original, like the beginning of the movie where the people of the island are like, yeah, we have this legend about a giant monster and this is what it is, and the scientists are like, whatever, you fucking old folksy people, and then, oh shit, Godzilla's
Yeah.
real, so
There's also like an element of like it's touched upon once of like media exploitation and slander and like destroying people's reputations.
mm-hmm,
Like the old man talks about that as he's ferrying them, and
mm-hmm.
I don't know. Again, I thought that would lead somewhere, but it's just like just another bit of spice in the whole stew. Yeah.
Yeah, because the setup, like, I guess to talk about, like, in case anybody is confused or hasn't seen The Ring, the idea is that there is a cursed videotape that nobody knows the origin of, but is passed around, from like people, teenagers or whatever, like just watching it and listening to it. And in it is like a series of like very strange images and a scraping noise. And when it ends, you would get a call, and if you get that call, then you will die in 1 week. In the American movie, literally, she tells you you'll die in 7 days, whereas in this, it's just the scraping noise again, which I find very fucking creepy. If you were to, like, I don't
Piece
know
together what
what
that
would be
is.
worse. Yeah, to like have somebody like a ghost directly tell you like 7 days, and then you just be like, oh my god, you kind of can put the pieces together, or just getting that noise and being like, what the fuck was that, and having that unease. So then the movie is structured like over the course of the next week of this, this lady who's a journalist who was investigating because her niece was killed by this curse. The beginning of the movie is actually really cool
That was her
as like
niece.
a short form. Yeah, well, her sister's
Oh,
daughter,
I didn't.
so
I thought
like,
that
yeah,
was just the
niece.
babysitter.
Yeah,
I didn't pick up on that. Okay.
yeah. Um, because like she goes to the funeral
Yeah.
and everything and like talks to her sister. Um, but that whole section at the beginning is like such a good little short horror movie
Yeah.
because and it feels very like that's the selling point of the movie basically. Like you're kind of like hooked
Mm-hmm.
after that point.
It's probably like
And then after that it's like
the scene that
mm-hmm,
people will remember.
yeah. And like that in the end,
Yeah.
which is like the money shot of the movie.
Absolutely.
Uh, but so like the main structure is that she goes, she investigates, she ends up finding the tape, watching it, immediately regrets it, understands like this is the real deal. Like I am going to die in 7 days, and then she gets her ex-husband to come and help her investigate and find out if they can like learn the mystery and the history behind it. He is also cursed because he ends up watching a copied version of the tape.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually the son, like their son,
But
is cursed because he watches it one night when they are out
I love the
investigating.
reveal of him watching it, where she just slides open the door really
That
quickly.
is so good.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because that's like
Like, oh
viscerally
fuck
that like
no.
hits you on
Yeah.
like a paternal
Mm-hmm.
like level of like fuck.
Right.
Like you just dragged your son into this now, like something that he can't even comprehend, that you can barely
Mm-hmm.
comprehend, and just like her like screaming in horror and like holding him is just like it's just like such a great moment,
Mm-hmm.
because like I like how as the movie goes on she becomes more like frazzled and more like unstable because it is like
Yeah. Of course. Well,
it's like a
anyone
countdown to
would. Yeah.
death. Like
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's like in the every day the movie is like, you know, September 14th.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, oh shit, we're getting closer.
Yeah.
It's just like a very good, like driving the drama so that even though it's like, it is a pretty slow paced movie and it's a very like relaxed movie, there's like a few jump scares here and there, but for the most part,
Yeah.
it is like a pretty laid back movie of just people like slowly investigating this mystery.
And we
Um,
never learn until the very end, and still we don't even really know how exactly she. I mean, we know she has psychic powers. That's why she's killing them. But like,
yeah.
we still don't like. We never see it done in action, really. And all we are given to go
Mm,
upon, it was so good. A through line through this movie is the death masks of all the
mm,
victims, because they all have like this
mm,
horrific like face on them after they're dead.
yeah.
Oh, and another great.
Like that.
Go ahead.
Mm. I was just gonna mention that, like that also, like when they take a photo of
Yes, that's
you
exactly what I was going to bring
when
up.
you,
Hmm.
yeah, when you have the curse, it's a distorted
Yeah,
version of it. Like that's super
and
creepy.
the reveal of that
Um,
for the main character is another like great oh shit like moment.
mm,
Uh,
but
let's see.
yeah, go
There's
ahead.
uh, back to the tape. Another like kind of cool thing I remember. Oh, not cool, but like another like kind of subtly creepy thing that I don't think ever gets explained is uh, the famous shot of the lady brushing her hair. She points out like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
that's like an impossible camera angle. Like you would see the camera
Mm-hmm.
in the reflection of the mirror. And just another like,
Mm-hmm. So,
yeah,
like, what is that? Like, it starts to you start to put together that this really is some supernatural like psychic transference thing rather than oh somebody filmed this as a prank and then it's like doing this big elaborate thing because I like that they go and start to investigate like all these elements of it including the possibility that this was recorded from like a pirate broadcast, like if somebody hijacked the studios like the what we talked about with in the Doctor Who
mm-hmm.
series with the like what is the Coke guy
uh,
the
Max Headroom.
yeah, Max Headroom, that dude. uh it's like something like that, like if that happened or whatever, just like I don't know, it's just very interesting, especially because I feel like the vibe of the movie, like the urban legends and like passing the thing again, like you said, I agree that it's very underbaked because it's like a pretty contained story.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't like really, they really don't spend too much time beforehand exploring the greater reach of this legend. Uh, so you can maybe assume that this is like the starting of it, and
Yeah,
then it gets much
I
worse
can't
later
I
on.
just picture the sequels being a lot less restrained than this movie is.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But
Uh,
the like I just think about it in the sense of like 90s internet, like this was sort of like people on Japanese message boards in like the 90s and everything, like they had like access to good internet way before we did. I would say like it was like mid 2000s or so before we
yeah,
really had like good
we were
internet.
still using like
um
AOL in like 2002, 2003. Mm-hmm.
yeah. So the idea of like, so yeah, it's all like sort of tapping into that idea of like those urban legends
Mm-hmm.
and like the creepy internet content and
Yeah.
everything. And I feel like it has continued to influence like real life urban legends and fictional ones, in movies
Mm-hmm.
and everything, in a lot of like obvious ways. And like,
The
yeah, I don't know,
whole
there's just like
the whole like
yeah, go ahead.
visual aesthetic of like super low resolution images is where like you
Mm,
can't exactly make out what you're seeing. It's so easy to make that creepy, and there's like that I would
mm,
say that kind of whole visual element is like it was probably very prevalent around this time.
yeah. Oh, that's another thing, is that I think that the tape felt like it was like higher quality in the American version,
Yeah,
and also the entire movie was like color graded to be as blue as
I
possible.
do remember that.
Because I
This movie,
because I just remember the well
yeah,
scene being very blue,
mhm,
whereas the well is very like blurry and like green and forest colors
yeah,
in this movie, because it's like, yeah, it's in the
and
middle of a forest.
it's like and the shot when they're in it, like the lighting of that shot where it's just like the flashlight, just like the gross
Mm.
water. I
Oh
yeah.
yeah, that's so.
Hmm.
That must have sucked to
Oh, absolutely.
film. I was just thinking about that the entire time, of being like, up to your neck in dirty water. Like, I'm sure it wasn't like actual
Yeah,
dirty well
no.
water, because they would get like a fucking
Yeah.
virus
Mhm.
and die of the
Or
diphtheria,
just freeze.
or whatever,
Hmm.
if they did that. Yeah, but like, yeah, it must have been miserable recording
Hmm.
that, and like even if like they like cut around it and everything, just constantly lifting up those buckets of water for hours on end to like dump them out is just like, my
It's
god, what
it makes absolutely
horribly monotonous
it
work.
makes absolutely no sense that she's the one pulling the buckets on the first shift. They-
Yeah.
Mhm.
I was thinking that too, where it's like, I think he's going down, like, in no way, like, I thought for a second, it was like, okay, she's gonna go down because he's like too psychically sensitive, so he can't go down there where there's like literally the corpse of the person who's gonna kill them. um but then he's like, I'll go down, don't worry, which I guess is like a cool manly thing to do, but it's like, I feel like he's got the easier job, which
Yeah,
is where she had to like lift up
for
like
hours.
12, 15 feet for
Mhm.
hours, just like buckets of water. Not light, by the way. Water is very
They don't even
heavy.
make them do that shit on
So,
Survivor for that long.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah. But yeah, that's just like a really cool set
oh
piece
yeah.
too, just like being underneath that cabin, and like her constantly like looking behind her to see like the sun
Mhm.
setting. It's just like that encroaching doom of like, fuck, we barely have any
Mhm.
time to get this done.
Um, Real quick, back to the because you mentioned the color grading in the original or in the
Mm,
remake. I just call that the original.
mm,
Sorry.
yeah.
Um, the film in this movie is very beautiful. Like the shots are very
Mm,
well composed. The film grain is, at least in the version that I'm sure we both watched on Tubi. Uh,
mm,
the film grain is really pronounced, but it's like I mean, the remaster was like really well done. The movie looks very good, and I'm sure it looks a
mm.
million times better than the studio remake that we got over here.
Yeah. Yeah, because like, I mean, in general, I think a lot of people gave like, like that movie, but give shit to it just from how like overproduced it
Yeah.
is. Like that, like that's sort of the the complaints that I've heard from people.
I think there's a scene in the sequel to the remake, where like their car gets attacked by a bunch of
Hmm.
deer or something, like CGI
Yeah.
deer. I have a memory of that.
Kind of, yeah.
Hmm.
I'm vaguely interested. I've never seen. I remember like being a kid and being like, I was scared of The Ring.
Yeah.
I was scared of The Grudge.
Hmm.
Um, Whenever there was like a commercial on like Adult Swim for like The Grudge 2 or the Ring 2 or whatever, I would like change the channel,
Hmm.
and then change it back when it because I was just like, oh, I don't want to see creepy, scary movies or whatever.
Um,
Um,
when I have a similar memory, but it was let's see, would have been 2003, so I would have been like 7 when they were around this time. The
mhm.
trailers for the remake of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre scared the
Mhm.
shit out of me, and I had to change the
Yeah.
channel whenever they came on.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Trying to think, like, I feel like, yeah, I guess that's something that we can talk about, and like, obviously it'll be more relevant as we get to movies that did scar us, but I would say, like, yeah, I definitely did have, like, a lot of, like, anxiety or trauma, maybe, around, like, these movies. I don't think it was specifically because, like, oh, Japanese horror movies are more scary than American horror movies or whatever. They have, like, they can be more haunting or
Yeah.
whatever, but like I wouldn't necessarily just generalize an entire country's cinema as better or whatever. But yeah, I just remember like them coming out, and I was just like way more scared of them than I was of like more classic horror movies like, uh, Friday the 13th or Nightmare on
Well,
Elm
those aren't.
Street.
Well, Friday the 13th is
I
never
I
scary,
know.
but
I know, but like I know my mom, she grew up with Nightmare on Elm Street, and always talked about how like she was freaked out by like the first movie, um, and like there's Freddy with his long arms and
the
everything. Uh,
that first one is scary, but you cannot take that final shot seriously at all. So when
mhm,
he pulls the mannequin through the window.
yeah, I mean, and then like later in like when I was like 10 or 11, I became like, I watched those movies a
Yeah.
ton. Like I
Mhm.
became like a big fan of those movies, and I talked about before that I grew like really fond of Nightmare on Elm Street 2 because I recognized even at a young age it was a camp
Mhm.
masterpiece. So, and I'm like, is it the best one?
It,
I don't.
it definitely
Maybe not.
has one of the
But
scariest versions of Freddy for sure.
oh yeah,
Mhm.
like he actually does feel really like he's like a demon from
Yeah, and
hell,
there's like a
basically.
possession element. He makes you appear like
Yeah,
you're killing
like,
people. It's really good.
yeah, yeah, I do. Yeah, I have a lot of love for
Mhm.
that movie. But to go back to
We'll talk about it
Ring,
for Pride Month.
um, yeah, we'll get to whenever we get to
Yeah.
that. Um, but yeah, this movie, it's funny comparing it to Ju-on the Curse, like the
Mhm.
original Ju-on movie, which was like a video, like filmed on video.
I
Looks kind of shitty. Like it kind of looks like
so
old common, like
I know.
Kuga or
So
something. Like it has that same
I gotta ask
video
you because I
quality.
remember there was a period when our friend Heather made us all watch a bunch of
Hmm.
Ju-on stuff, and there
Yeah.
was something that was called the original, but it was like a short film about some girls outside of a school.
Hmm.
Is that what you're talking about, or just like the first movie? 'Cause
Oh, the first
okay,
movie, which is there was like a short film that was like a proof of concept.
yeah,
That's what I also think. That's very similar to the first scene in this movie with the two girls
yeah.
in the room, talking about the curse and then being like, "Ah, just kidding," but also I'm not kidding. Like that also, going back to that, very real for like teenagers to like take something super seriously and then be like, "Ah, I'm just fucking with you," as a coping mechanism because they know that they're being serious and they want to like take it things down a notch. Um, but yeah, no, I'm talking. There is a like the original. It's just called Ju-on the
Yeah.
Curse, and then there was a kind of a remake of it that was released in theaters a few years later. That's the one that's The Grudge is based on, called Ju-on the Grudge, and I have that on DVD. Really good. Like I would say it's scarier than the American movie by like a long shot. But
Agreed.
you know, it's also like again different
Yeah.
vibes, different countries and everything. And it like I do appreciate that The Grudge does keep it,
I
you know,
would
like
be
as a Japanese
yeah.
horror
I
story.
would be way more fucked if I went in that house than if I watched the tape. I think because
Yeah.
there are ways to get out of Sadako coming after you. Once you set foot in that house, like there's nothing you can do, and it's the
Yeah.
worst things that are gonna happen.
Yeah, it just is like it's really horrific
Yeah.
because it's just like the you know, I should talk about this a little bit, like get into a little bit of like Japanese like mythology.
Hmm.
Is that, you know, there's the concept of the onryo, which is like a woman who is like scorned in life and then haunts after, you know, her death.
Hmm.
And that legend goes so far back that it's literally in the creation myth of the country.
Oh.
As in, there was the twin god, like the two gods, creator gods, Izanami and Izanagi.
Hmm.
Izanami, the wife, she ended up like dying and going to the underworld. And then when Izanagi went down to save her, saw that she had become like a hideous monster after death and decided to reject her. And that rage that she felt afterwards ended up cursing Japan, the entire country,
Oh.
and that's why like yokai and evil spirits exist.
That's
Um,
that's
so it's
fascinating.
like
I love
baked
that.
into the cultural identity of Japan that like don't fuck with women,
Huh.
you know, which is like, like they are the mothers and like the creators of everything. And if you like scorn them or take advantage of them, hurt, kill, etc., then they will like unleash rage upon you tenfold, like in the afterlife.
Hmm.
And that's like a really cool element that exists in these, like that's why
Yeah.
there's so many films about scary women, you know, like
Audition.
Kayako. And yeah. Yeah. Oh man, that's another one where it's like not super scary, but at the end you're like, oh
Yeah.
fuck.
It because
So
it takes so long to get to the point of the horror. But
mhm.
and like once you get there, it's so disgusting. You got oh
Yeah,
my god.
it's a
But
grueling
it's such
final yeah.
it's such a
Yeah, go
normal
ahead.
like almost like romantic movie for so long in the beginning of it though.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's good. It's real good. Maybe we'll do that at some point.
Absolutely.
But yeah, but yeah, just want to like that's like the cultural context
Hmm.
of like if anybody ever wondered like why are there so many like creepy girls with long hair in you know Japanese horror movies, that is why, because it's like ghost stories about women ghosts like that has existed for hundreds of years in Japan, you know, like for a very long time. And you know, this is just modernizing those myths, basically, like taking that idea and bringing it to the modern age, but also like it still has that like old school folklore twist to it, like with the divination and everything, and then you know just the being able to like use have psychic powers or control nature and things like that, more fantastical elements. um
There's like
yeah, so
I'm
that's like
there's a lot of elements with the ocean, with the island, and I know that
mm,
has a lot of like I'm sure a lot of like folklore and myths around it. Like we all know, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
significance. That's the, you know, the frolic and the brine and the goblins be
Hmm.
thine. So you know,
Well,
that's goblins, you know, that's
and
the word they use is bakemono in Japanese, which just literally means monster. So
what is she doing in the well? She's literally frolicking in brine.
yeah, which is like as soon as you realize like, oh, the scraping is her nails
Yes.
against the rock walls,
Mhm.
and the reason it's in 7 days is because she died. Like she took an entire week to die in the
I
well,
didn't
which
put
is
that
like
together.
fucking
Holy shit! I
horrifying.
never put that together.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So that's like those things, you know, they just like really add to it. Um, but yeah, I think like that like final part of the movie is like very like you get very engaged,
Yep.
especially when there's like the synth music playing
Hmm.
as they're like bucketing out all of the water, you're like, oh shit,
Mm-hmm.
are they gonna do? You know, you feel very engaged, even if like for a lot of the movie, there was a couple times where I picked up my phone and
Yeah.
you know looked at my phone
Mm-hmm.
watching the movie.
Um, uh, Great editing. Because I mentioned earlier that scene just kind of ended, cut to something else. There's a hilarious moment.
Mm.
I've laughed out loud where she takes the neglectful mother, Asakawa. These
Mm.
parents suck. They're so.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so she takes the kid to her dad, and they're fishing together, and it just slam cuts to Yoichiro,
Yeah.
Yoichi. Sorry, I can't read my own handwriting. It just
Mm.
slam cuts to Yoichi, just laying spread out on the ground like he's been knocked out, uh, like he's
Yeah.
Peter Griffin in Family Guy fell down the
Yeah,
stairs.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, so uh, the scene in the well definitely was like a standout for me, and I again because I forgot that I had watched this movie, I was like, is this the ending? I was okay with it, but then I
Mm.
forgot. Oh wait, one of the most famous scenes in horror history is gonna happen in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Which is such a good like bait and switch
Yeah,
of like they go through all this effort and get to the point where they're like able to find her remains and you know bury them properly, put her to rest, etc. But and you think like, okay, yeah, that's it. And then there's like this lingering danger in the back of your head of like, but what if it's not? And the next day comes, and then yeah, the
yeah.
seeing the ex-husband like you know look at the TV and the horror in his face, like how palpable it is of like
You
we
you
didn't
can
do it,
see him.
we fucked up
You can see
somehow.
him try and deny it for like a couple seconds in his face too, and he's like, "No,
Mm,
we did it." And then like you just see him drop.
yeah.
Um, she just like comes towards the screen. She
Mm,
crawls out. It's really cool the effect of her coming out of the screen because like it's just like
yeah.
it's just transition from digital image into like a real like hair coming out of the screen.
Physical,
Yeah,
yeah.
because I remember in the remake, Samara has like a digital video effect to her when she comes out of
Mm,
the real world, right? Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah. And she's like, she is very blue and like haggard and everything, whereas like, you know, Sadako, she's like pale, but she has like a human skin
Yeah,
tone
it's just
on
her
her. And
you just
then,
don't see her face and her nails are
yeah, which is
yeah.
disgusting. But you know, and also the scene of her standing up is filmed in reverse.
Yes.
So it gives it this like otherworldly,
It's
eerie
so creepy.
quality.
Mhm.
Yeah, and then like yeah, just that final shot of him like dropping to the ground and like looking up, and then the hair parts, and you can just see the eye staring down, and it's just like that kind of like there's no mercy at all in this gaze. Like
Yeah.
no, they thought that they could like appeal to her humanity, but there is nothing. It's very like that is very scary, and then like just that moment of you know the main character being like oh like if that happened like her first thought starts to be what did I do to break the curse, why did it not happen to me, how can I save my son, and then just her like going over it in her head repeatedly, and then like seeing the ghost of her husband pointing to the purse, realizing that of course it was a copy that was in his VHS player,
Hmm.
and then like putting it together that what needs to happen is making a copy of the tape, showing that to somebody, and then that will you know pass on, and then the girls like in the like giving the like schoolroom chatter about the urban legend,
Hmm.
even saying like well what did the next person just pass it on to,
Yeah.
that's
It'll
why I
just
say
never
it's
end.
funny
Yeah.
that it's like she's giving it to the one person that probably will never do that,
It's
never just pass it on. But yeah, just the idea, the concept of it is so like disturbing, like once you realize like yeah this is I mean this is like a chain letter or something like that
hmm
where it's you have to give the curse to somebody else but you can never like eliminate it completely.
and
So
again, it works so well with it being a VHS tape for that specific time period because as soon as the movie ended,
mm,
I went back on Tubi and there was like a poster for one of the other sequels, and it's like somebody looking at their smartphone with Sadako behind
yeah.
them. Well,
Yeah, just much lamer. I think that's why like analog horror, like we talked about that a little bit, but like there's a lot of those YouTube videos where it's like, what if you're watching a VHS tape and it was like there was an alien in it or whatever, like there was a ghost or something. You're watching like late night TV and then something weird happens. Like that stuff is just like a very like, I don't know, it's a common occurrence of people of like a certain age, and then they're spreading their memories,
yeah.
and then it infects like other generations who didn't grow up with that, but they're still like burdened with the curse. So I don't know. There's like I said, there's some good stuff that it maybe doesn't fully seize on, but I think like overall, like I really enjoyed coming back to this movie
Yeah,
and watching it
I
again
definitely got
because
more out of it on this second viewing because I remembered that I had watched it.
mm,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. That's a funny thing where it's like last week where like, yeah, you haven't seen this, right? Nope, haven't seen it. And then we watch it. Like, actually, I have seen
Mhm.
this, but I just completely forgot. That has happened to me before
Yeah.
where I'll be watching something and I'll be like, oh, wait, I have seen this. And then, yeah.
But
But
the movie that
go
we're
ahead.
talking about next week, I know for a fact you haven't seen, and we'll get on that later. But
Okay.
do you yeah, do you have any? I think we're about done here. Do you have any final
Yeah.
thoughts?
I think my only final thought is that if you are interested in this genre of movie, this is a very foundational movie for that genre. So I say go ahead and check it out. It's not my personal favorite. If I had to pick one, it would probably be Pulse,
Okay.
aka Kairo from Kiyoshi Kurosawa. Also, another one that we did for Discuss All Monsters was Curse or Noroi, which is a mockumentary style J horror movie, and that one's
Ooh,
really good. So
that
I
sounds
would
that's
also,
right in my alley.
yeah, very much recommend it. Yeah, that also has some like that's the thing we can maybe talk about at some other point, but like Japan loves like psychic powers and like that kind of like weird new age pseudoscience stuff,
Yes.
which I always found like very
Hmm.
interesting. So there's like a lot of those elements in these. Joan actually doesn't have that really. It is just like pure old school curse in the modern day, whereas there's like the psychic stuff exists in Noroi, it exists in this, and in other movies and stuff. Like even like Kameru Kuga has like some of those elements, So,
I'm sure
but
there's been a Sentai Ranger that has some kind of psychic powers like that. Um,
yeah, and like yeah. So there you go. I would recommend it, and definitely check it out if you want to get like do your homework for this genre. But I also think it's like a worthwhile movie, very easy to watch, and it's like if you just want like a nice chill afternoon movie that isn't gonna like scare you for days on end, but it's just gonna like give you a little bit of a like look around your shoulder feeling.
mhm.
This is a way to go.
I completely agree, and I'm even after this discussion, I'm now like really interested in watching sequels to this, even on just in my own free time,
Mm,
because I would love to see
mm.
like I hate saying it, but I kind of hope they get really stupid, uh,
Yeah.
I, because I feel like there is a lot of potential for really cheesy things to happen just with this general concept in like later sequels
mm.
that I again with her on a infecting a smartphone. It's great.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, yeah, really great movie. The atmosphere and filmmaking was really top notch. I love the editing. Um, the pacing could have been better. Scenes could have flowed a
Mm.
little bit better. Um, yeah, overall, really solid movie.
But okay, now that we're done talking about that, uh, I guess we should shill our shit. Cody, we don't know if in real life at this point, but I assume that you're going to be posting this on your YouTube
Yeah.
channel. But we haven't gotten to the point where we're posting the episodes yet, so just waiting on some people. So if the people want to check you out, there you are. Anywhere else they can find you on the wide internet?
You can all find me on Twitter. My name on there is Gay Boomhauer, and you can find me on various movies on Tubi. Spider
Mm-hmm.
Baby. I'm the further I keep doing this, I'm not going to list my entire filmography. Uh,
Yeah,
yeah,
sure.
but yeah. I'm in Spider Baby. I'm in 1031 Part 4. That one should be coming on Tubi pretty soon. Big Bad CGM
Mm-hmm.
Monsters, and a few other things. Check out my IMDb page if you want.
Cool. And I'm over on Twitter and Blue Sky at Wazbranger, WAZP Ranger. It's mostly stream of consciousness stuff, but I talk about videos I'm making or podcasts I'm in. Uh, got Cartoon Buffoons, which is my main squeeze. I do with our friend Morgan. We go through every single Cartoon Network show in order of release, which is we've been doing it for like a year now, and we're like 36 episodes in, and we're like in 2004.
Oh my
So
god.
it's gonna take a while for us to get through it. So, and there's a lot more other things, maybe some secrets for April that we're gonna get to.
I've got to come on.
Maybe you
Live
already
action
know.
shit. I've got to come on.
Oh, God, yeah. But yeah, you were on Courage.
Yeah.
Courage the Cowardly Dog. We did that. So, but yeah, there's that. You can get it a week early for $3 on Patreon. You can also get Wow Cool Robot, which is me and my friend Wayne going through every single robot in existence and reviewing them in like 5 to 10 minutes. It's a good time. But yeah, that will do it for this episode of Horror Hole. Cody, what thing did you pick out
Well, Wyatt,
for our next episode?
I figured that when you watch the tape in the ring, you're given 7 days. And I figured what better way to spend those 7 days than with 5 nights at Freddy's.
Oh, God.
This is priority number one, bitch.
I have to learn about Five Nights at Freddy's lore now.
I
have to learn.
You're welcome.
I have to learn about the Mormon Church now. So many things.
It's gonna be a very rich discussion because that movie is a capital S stinker. I tell you what.
Yeah. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna not do any research about Five Nights at Freddy's lore, and I'm just gonna ask questions.
I already know it. Unfortunately.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah. All right. Thank you for joining us. Next time we're gonna be doing Five Nights at Freddy's. See you there.
Peace out.